Okay, good evening, everybody. Happy Tuesday. We come to you live from the DraftKings Twitter, DK Nation. We're also on YouTube and Twitch. So thanks for choosing us on your Tuesday night, getting you ready for a three-game slate in the NBA. Brendan Glasheen, joined by Chirag, Hira, and Matt Meiselman, DraftKings content specialists. Love saying that. Every time I have a chance to, I will throughout the course of the night.
Soon it will change.
Gents, I hope you're well. Typically, when we do the Tuesday show, we've come to find out smaller slates. So when you pick and choose for those classic lineups, have to be very careful. Have to make sure you avoid chalky picks, but also pick the right stud. And of course, on the betting side, not much to pick from. But typically, in these smaller slates, we get a pretty good game. And I don't know if these games are going to be all that close, but we got some pretty cool stuff going on tonight. You got Steph Curry potentially breaking the three-point record. I say potentially. He only needs two to pass Ray Allen in all-time three-pointers made. Ray Allen will be in attendance at MSG tonight, second leg of a back-to-back for the Warriors. We're keeping an eye on Kevin Durant, who might get ruled out with an ankle load management. Brooklyn is home against the Raptors. And in the nightcap, the Suns, they've been dealing with injuries, taking on the Portland Trailblazers, also dealing with injuries. So with that, Chirag, what is your leadoff thought here on the night with the three games?
The fact that the Warriors did not even leave Indiana until this morning, and they landed barely like 3 hours ago in Indiana, or in New York, excuse me. And I think Steph Curry is just going to come out here, knock down his 2 threes, and just chill. I like the Knicks +5. It was 4.5 earlier. I really have no issue with that. And then also, I'm kind of confused as to what to do with this Suns Blazers game. The Blazers getting their first game back with Dame Lillard on Sunday, and they shot basically a historic rate for themselves from the 3-point line to stay in that game with the Timberwolves, who had lost, I think, between 3 or 5 games prior to that matchup. So the Timberwolves weren't even that great. But what the Suns playing on second night of a back-to-back, they're decimated by injuries. I don't know what to do with that line. Maybe Matt has some insight, because I think it's just basically a coin flip, whoever can knock down their shots at this point.
Yeah, Matt, you want to give a thought on that? I mean, Chirag has labeled you with no fun Meiselman. So do you have anything fun to add on this game?
I mean, I always think there's fun when we talk about the Blazers. They're one of my favorite teams to break down. I do think there's plenty to get into here. Should we start with this game, or should we get to the Steph Curry stuff first? Because I actually think there's a lot of potential betting opportunity on all three of these games. DFS, I think we're going to have to wait out this Kevin Durant news to really be able to give anything useful, because without knowing if Durant's going to play, it's just like it's going to change whether he's in or out.
Oh, sure. We'll start with that first game, and that's a good tease to stay tuned and see how Meiselman feels about our Portland Trailblazers hosting the Suns, as Chirag said, on the Suns on the second night of a back-to-back, and Dame Lillard played 37 minutes on Sunday against Minnesota. Sure. Golden State and the Knicks. What's your thought on this game?
So Chirag mentioned, the Warriors not flying out of Indiana until this morning. I didn't know that. And I also, even if Steph Curry didn't have the historic 3-point chase going on, and even if it weren't true that he might like have a little more to prove in this one or something like I think this line is too high regardless of all of that. The biggest reason why is just the road stretch that the Warriors are in the midst of. They played a tough game in Philly the other night, and then to me, it was really strange that Curry and Draymond didn't get the night off against the Pacers. And maybe it's just because of this 3-point record that he's going for, which I think is just kind of an odd reason. Like, were they not confident he could knock down 6 threes against the Knicks? Like, it would have been exciting to see him try, even if he didn't get there at MSG. But yeah, so they played a tough game in Philly that they lost on the road. Then they went into Indiana 2 nights later and barely escaped in that game. But the important point is all their starters had to play full minutes. And now they're, again, after going from Indiana to New York, like these sorts of things add up, where like the travel is on the Knicks side, where they've been sitting at home for a couple of days. this is certainly going to be a game that matters to them, whatever that's worth. Like, I wouldn't expect the Knicks to not care about this game. I don't know that them trying extra hard is a real thing we can count on, but the Knicks also are getting a couple guys back that were out for COVID protocols. I don't think the Knicks are especially good, but they're getting a decent amount of points at home. And I think this is pretty close to a toss-up game. Maybe the Warriors should only be favored by a point or two. And then you add in the fact that Curry might play lower minutes because once he gets this record, there's less for him to prove, or just maybe they want to save him for, I think they have an upcoming 2-game back-to-back on the road later in the week. So it's just like they're in the midst of this long East Coast road trip. And I really like the spot for the Knicks because of that. I think that, like, the Warriors team should look a little more fatigued than normal. But then the last point on this, like, I also just generally think the Warriors are a little overrated. I don't think they're as good as the Suns. I think their record is just kind of what it is at this point. They have basically everyone on the roster has overachieved slightly is the way I'm looking at it. They are a really good team, but I think everyone's playing a little over their heads. I think they've just gelled a little more than we would have all expected, and they probably regress a little bit going forward. So they're obviously the better team here, but I think, like, the circumstances all just align for the Knicks, where I wouldn't pick the Knicks to win outright, but I do think they covered.
Warriors are in Boston on Friday, then they're in Toronto on Saturday. So that's the back-to-back you are referring to before heading back home to play Sacramento next Monday. Chirag, you have a response to that as far as how you feel about the line? I know you're thinking Knicks here with the points.
Yeah, it just makes too much sense in this scenario. They played basically 3 games in 4 nights, second out of a back-to-back. All their energy has gone into this record. I think the team is literally just going to be like, exhale right after they get this record and be like, you know what? It is the Warriors, so I don't count them out. But I just think that a Tom Thibodeau team that's kind of reeling, they do have injury situations of their own to consider. They might even get Kemba Walker into potentially this game now because of all their injuries. Who knows? Derrick Rose started their last game. It's just up a lot of differences that happen, but I just think that they're a little bit. They just have that style where they can play everybody max minutes and get there. Whereas the Warriors, for them to play everybody at max minutes, then that's just gonna lead them to just be completely spent. And a team that is a jump shooting team, yes, they do score inside well, but it's mostly a jump shooting team. You need your legs. And third game in 4 nights after last night being a tough one. Losing to the Sixers as well on that ABC showcase game. Like, there's a lot going on here. And I just think that it's going to be, it's not just because the Knicks are like good or better than the Warriors. It's just the scheduling loss. That's a scheduling spread loss. I still think the Warriors have a chance to win.
And typically, correct me if I'm wrong, we were here last Tuesday. We're pretty high on the Knicks, right? When they come off a loss, so that they put themselves in spots where they're 7-7 against the spread after a loss this season, but it feels like they don't put together really horrible back-to-back nights, right? And
it's just a coaching thing, and I think that you have to really pick your spots with that. Was it a blowout before? Was it like a tough fought nail biter that ended up in losing in clutch time or whatever like that? So when they get blown out and they're able to rest their starters a little bit, they come back a little bit more hungrier. But I see it as just depends on really the scenario. And I just think the Knicks just have enough in the gas tank, even though they're banged up, to be able to cover the spread.
Is this an under spot as well tonight? And sorry, Matt, you can add your thought.
Yeah.
Just your thought on the total.
Yeah. The total, I'm not sure, although I think it might be interesting to look in player props on other Warriors guys if we think Steph might get lighter minutes or not take as many shots once he hits the record, something like that. But also, like, I don't really buy into like the Knicks special capacity for winning after a loss, like them being especially well coached or anything like that. But I still like them here, even though I don't think the Knicks are that good. Like, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs this year. I don't think they have enough talent really to be a team that can reliably come back after a loss. Like this narrative made sense for like last year's Lakers or something, where it's like the players have to be good enough where they actually can do what they want to do. But even so, I still like the Knicks here. So we might just be nitpicking. It could just be a blind spot in my own analysis, like that I don't see these kinds of things. But either way, yeah, I still like the Knicks. And then, yeah, maybe we look into Jordan Poole or Andrew Wiggins player props. Just because like Steph might not do as much once he hits the record. He only needs 2 threes. It's not like he's going to go out and score 50 to get this record.
Yeah.
Or 40 or even 35. Like, he doesn't need to have a huge game. He just needs to make 2 3-pointers. So it's not like we're going to expect this is going to be interesting for DFS too. Once we get to it, is like, are people playing Steph Curry because of this record? Because to me, that seems like a very significant mistake. If that's the reason you're going to use him, obviously he could always have a big game. He is probably the best offensive player in the NBA, but still, like, that seems like a bad reason to go after him tonight when he only needs 2 3-pointers.
I'm pretty sure there's a spot here on the sportsbook, DraftKings sportsbook, of course, where Steph is the favorite to score the most points of anyone on the slate. So that feels a little ridiculous.
That little Seth Curry news that just came across the wire, it tripped me out for a second. I was like, wait, what?
It's like, Steph's not playing tonight? Oh, wait.
Yeah, it's his brother.
Let's spend a minute
questionable for Wednesday because Seth's got to go to New York to watch this game, so he's questionable for Wednesday. I think that's what's going on.
Let's just spend a minute on the promotion because, we're here to do a show, and DraftKings is, of course, part of the show. We got to get people to buy into the product. Come on, you guys know that. So, Meiselman, we talked about this a little bit in our Slack channel during the afternoon. You think there's a chance Curry doesn't hit 2 threes in the first quarter? You like it in the first half, but not in the first quarter. If you take Curry to break the threes record in the first, it's -110.
So I've rethought this a little since we talked about it earlier. Curry's normal, just so people know the situation, Curry's normal rotation this year is he plays about 6 or 7 minutes and then hits the bench for most of the rest of the first quarter. I think a lot of times they'll bring him back in for like the final possession, just like the last offensive possession of the quarter if there's a dead ball before that. And I guess like that's the rotation that he's gotten comfortable with. I think LeBron does a similar thing where like some players are just more comfortable playing a shorter stint early just to get their legs under them, going to the bench, and then they play most of the second quarter. One tonight could be different. Like he may just stay out there until he hits the 2 3-pointers. So I'm not as confident as when I said it earlier. And he also may just shoot more often in the first 7 minutes of this game than he usually does. Yeah. But I just think it's an important point to note that like you more likely than not are not getting the full 12 minutes out of Curry in the first quarter. That doesn't mean that he's not going to hit 2 3-pointers in whatever 7 or 8 minutes. And it also doesn't mean that he won't do it this game. Like he normally will only play the 7 minutes, but in this particular game, it may be different. So I'm a little concerned there, but I also think it could be priced into the line, right? Like if we knew Curry was going to play the whole first 12 minutes of the game, I think this line would be higher than -110. It might be like -150 in that case. So maybe it's all priced in and none of this is really worth thinking about too much.
Part of me thinks too that Steve Kerr, knowing, he used to be a broadcaster, and I bring that part up because Reggie Miller will be there, Ray Allen will be there. When Reggie Miller had his record broken by Ray Allen, they're going to stop the game. I just wonder, look, you're both right. You've brought this up. Golden State doesn't need the game, okay? They escaped last night in Indiana. They're lucky to win that game. They had the travel issues this morning. They don't need to win the game. I get it. But maybe Steve Kerr thinks, look, let's just get this over with. Go ahead and chuck for the first 8 minutes, and then let's try to win the basketball game. And maybe they do try to win the basketball game with Jordan Poole playing 35 minutes and Steph playing 28. I don't know.
Steph's not playing 28 if it's not a blowout. Steph's going to play his normal allotment of minutes.
All right.
He's playing.
I think we may see him play 31 instead of 35, but like it's not going to be a crazy amount lower unless it's a blowout. I'd be surprised if he's like sitting the fourth in a close game.
Look, I'm just my
could happen
at MSG. That's not happening.
You're both making it sound like though, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth. But you're making it sound like okay, he breaks the record, he's just going to quit. Like, and it's just not going to play.
He's just going to chill. I
think that's what Chirag is hinting at a little bit.
His game is very much based around movement and curls and back screens and picks and all that kind of stuff. So like he can just be on the ball and just create off the dribble and stuff like that. He doesn't need to go running around the court trying to get open, hit threes. Like Jordan Poole was playing point guard for a lot of those minutes. Like he comes off, if you see the jump ball even straight up off the first tip, Jordan Poole was the main ball handler because that allows Curry to roam around. All they do is put him on the ball, have Draymond set a pick, and he doesn't have to do that as much.
Well, because of a record?
We may be reading a little too much into this. Like, to be clear, I think we both would kind of like the Knicks side of this game either way. And this is just like maybe one superficial, like secondary reason where it's like, if you need a little bit more incentive to like,
I don't discount one thing you're saying. I'm just curious, trying to make more sense.
I think it's fair to like really try to parse this because it is like a pretty weird situation. Like, how often do we have to consider whether we're going to bet on a team or a player or pick them in lineups, whatever, based on historical significance of the game? Like, it is very unusual. I think Chirag and I both are kind of just speculating here. Like, we really don't know how this is going to play out. Curry may want to make it a memorable game, like the one where you break the record, you should also score 45 points and hit 10 threes. Like, maybe that's in his mind.
It is MSG, right? If this was any other place, I'm kind of with you, right? Like, but I don't know, MSG, guys come to play at MSG.
Yep.
So, all right, Meiselman, let's discuss what you brought up. We've got the player props up now as far as points for tonight. Who are some Warriors? Let's play off the narrative of Curry gets the record early and maybe they run away with the thing. Who are some guys you might be eyeing?
Yeah, so I think if you're buying the idea that Curry goes for the record and then kind of coasts the rest of the game and doesn't take the same level of shots that he usually takes and maybe stands in the corner a little more than normal, then it's Poole and Wiggins. But like, personally, I'm not really buying into this too much. I think a bet on something like Poole to be the leading scorer in the game or something where you don't have to risk as much to get a bigger return. Like, I'm a little more interested in that. But honestly, like for player props tonight, I'm looking a little more at this Nets Raptors game where we still have this Kevin Durant situation up in the air. And that's more like I think that's just more throwing the idea out there. Like, if you buy into the Curry narratives, maybe you look at player props for the Warriors, where if you think Curry kind of just goes crazy because it's MSG, wants to show off, like maybe you bet an over on him. Or if you think it's the opposite, you bet an over on Poole. But I personally, like, I'm kind of just staying away from the situation aside from going Knicks +5. But I am pretty interested in the player prop situation for the Nets because they're still up and we don't know if Durant's playing yet.
Yeah, and look, and here's the leading scorer for the game: Curry -140, Julius Randle +450. I mean, maybe if you like the Knicks tonight to respond in this spot, and then there are Jordan Poole and Andrew Wiggins, pretty big numbers. If indeed Curry does coast after breaking the record tonight.
Yeah, I think these are reasonable spots to target if you buy into like, so I have to keep giving that caveat because I'm just not sure, but
right.
I think this is a better place to look than just like the raw over under for guys like Poole and Wiggins.
Yeah. And Curry, the favorite to lead the day, as we said off the top of the show at +210.
Man, if Kevin Durant doesn't play, that James Harden number looks really appealing.
+270, Chirag.
I'm getting old. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. You have a thought?
I mean, it's super appealing. My only hesitation is that if we get Chris Paul ending up resting, then Damian Lillard might be able to take that.
So that's interesting. I actually don't know that I would weigh that into Lillard's ability to have success tonight because I don't think Chris Paul's guarding him. I think we're going to get McCall Bridges locked on him either way. True. I wouldn't have said that actually yesterday, but I happened to watch some of that terrible Suns performance against the Clippers, and Bridges was on Reggie Jackson the whole game. I feel like he's just going to take the other team's best player.
Best guy is, yeah. But
yeah, like the idea that Chris Paul is going to guard the other team's best player on the second night of a back-to-back in a season where, like, I just don't think they're going to do that much.
Yeah, this is not 2008 when they used to go point guard battles back in the day.
Yeah, not anymore.
Yeah, that does make sense. But a little bit of a concern when I was watching that game there, I was watching the Suns broadcast and they were talking about how Bridges plays a lot of minutes, but he is a little bit banged up. So there is a chance for maybe not a full allotment of minutes or something.
Yeah, the Suns are in a weird spot because we also don't know if DeAndre Ayton's playing yet either. And JaVale McGee has been playing some big minutes. Like this is a tough situation to figure out. Like, yeah, we're waiting on Durant news. That's obviously the highest profile news of the day. But the Ayton situation and then a potential rest spot for maybe someone else on Phoenix, like those things, and especially because of how far after lock they are, like it's really hard to determine what to do right now. I think at least we need to get Durant news, which obviously we'll get before lock because that game locks right at the start of the slate. And we can figure out Ayton after at least.
Come on, KD.
Yeah, without knowing what KD's doing, like it's just really difficult.
You know what's going to happen, right? The
game time decision.
The next tweet is going to be Kevin Durant will be a game time decision.
Yeah, I love those. Those are the best. Then we just can't talk about anything.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Is there a new Chirag? Matt, you'll know this too. Is there a rule now about getting starting lineups in. What's the rule now? A half hour before tip?
It was last year they implemented it 30 minutes before tip, but obviously, as Joel Embiid proved last night, that doesn't matter.
Great point. Right. 10 minutes before, late scratch.
Yeah, it was like
No.
minutes
It was
before.
after the game started, but before it tipped.
Right. It was 8:05 for an 8 o'clock lock time, but an 8:11 or 8:12 actual tip. But 8:05 is quite late I mean, that almost never happens. And he wasn't on the injury report.
Yeah.
Freaking Doc. Meiselman, if you can, because of course we keep adding all these little like asterisks at the end of these discussions. The Curry narrative. Then we have the Kevin Durant news. Is there a bet you're leaning right now? I guess we should discuss the Nets Raptors line and how it is currently constructed. The Durant news possibly baked in.
Right. So basketball is very complicated. Like this is my favorite stuff, to just get into these like crazy nuanced things about all these different situations where we don't even have the information yet. But I guess I'll talk a little about the point spread and the total first. This line actually opened at 8.5 for Nets Raptors, and it's already down to 5. What's difficult to know is how much this is Durant and how much it's all the other Nets players that are unavailable. So prior to finding out that Durant was going to be questionable tonight, we found out that 4 Nets players, and I think Paul Millsap was already out for COVID. Yeah. So we had Javon Carter and LaMarcus Aldridge and James Johnson and DeAndre Bembry all out for the game for COVID protocols. So the line was already on the move even before we got the Durant downgrade. I think it had gotten to about 7, maybe 6.5 at that time. And now we're down to 5. So like at this point, if Durant gets ruled out, I don't think we see a number below 3.5, which means it's basically accounted for that he's closer to doubtful. I think that's basically where the line is. So on the one hand, like you're getting a little bit of value if you bet the Raptors +5 and there's no Durant. On the other hand, like there's potentially a lot of value on the Nets if Durant does play, where -5 probably turns back into -7, if not more. Because I think most people kind of just are assuming that Durant's going to sit this one out. Harden rested last game, and Durant did everything, had one of his best games of the season, almost 80 fantasy points. And like, it just makes sense, even though it's not a back-to-back, like Harden got the night off last time, Durant gets the night off this time. Don't really know why the Nets haven't told us yet what they're doing either way, like what they're waiting for. Maybe they're just doing like gamesmanship with Toronto, who knows? But I still think this line can move 1.5 or 2 points in either direction based on Durant. And then I think what's interesting too is the James Harden prop lines, if we want to open that up.
Sure. Like
the Nets have no one else to score really. And whether or not Durant is playing usually has a big impact on Harden's stats. In this particular case where there's already like no LaMarcus Aldridge and a bunch of other guys who can score, Harden's point total is going to move significantly depending on this. So if we're just looking at the points over under 24.5, I think we see a number as low as 21 if Durant plays and a number as high as 29 if Durant doesn't play. So like there's going to be significant line movement for James Harden in either direction once we find out this Durant news for real. And I like the over if Durant's out. I like the under if he's in. I know that's like a cop-out answer, but like really, I think you're getting a huge advantage either way.
You think so you like under if it gets to 21 and he plays, Durant plays.
No, I'm sorry. I like under at 24.5.
Yeah,
if you can get that number and
you have to take it on the news. You can't allow the line to shift. Right. If you allow the line to shift, you're going to get bad closing line value.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. The fair number with Durant out, but I think there's edge to be had in both directions. And this doesn't have to just be points. I think points plus assists is the same deal. Points plus even rebounds. Like Durant is a good rebounder too. Harden benefits in everything. So, I mean, any statistical combination involving James Harden is going to move significantly once we find out if Durant playing.
Can you look at what the odds to record a triple-double are?
Oh, yeah, that one too.
I think if it's around plus 600, there is, if you could take a little sprinkle.
I think that one's moved already. It may be off the board, but I'm pretty sure it would be priced in there.
Aha.
Only, so 230, you're not getting.
No, you don't want that. Plus 600 is where it's high.
So one thing that's potentially interesting, like people don't like to lay 3-1 odds on things, but if Durant's playing like minus 300, no triple-double is actually like that's not what the line should be. He's very unlikely to record a triple-double in a game where Durant's healthy. But he's got a 40% shot to do it somewhere around there if Durant's not playing. Like, this is just such a different situation based on KD playing or not playing. But I do think, it's good to highlight this one because to me, the triple-double number, it's actually already accounted for that Durant is out. And the player prop numbers are a midpoint. Like, to me, I think the player props on the over-unders on all the stat totals are set right in the middle where it's going to move up or down based on Durant. With that triple-double line, to me, though, it looks like that's already like primed for Durant to not be out there.
Points, rebounds, assists at 44.5. So that adds up to.
So just a quick thing to reference, when Durant got ruled out for the game against the Rockets, and we may or may not have predicted that on the show the night before it happened. But
you did. Take credit. Take the lap.
We all did. We all said it. We were in full agreement there. Harden was 40.5 for points, rebounds, assists at the time the news broke, and got up to 49.5 after that. So like him being at 44.5, I mean, the Raptors, Rockets, whatever, I think pretty similar matchups. I think that number is right in the middle of where it's going to be if Durant's in or out.
If I remember correctly, too, the game against the Rockets, because we were all, well, not all, but folks were hyping the Harden revenge game, Houston Rockets, whatever. Harden did not start well in that game either.
He put up a ton of counting stats, but it was not on efficient shooting. He just took a lot of shots.
Well, that's right.
I think that is the thing with
the Rockets were up like 15 in the first half, maybe even more.
The Rockets with this guy Garrison Matthews, who we may or may not have been talking about recently, they can win games. They just beat Atlanta on the road last night. Like they're 8 of their last 9 or something.
I thought Garrison Matthews was only going to be relevant last winter when I was bunkered down making NBA DFS lineups. I'm like, oh, who's this guy Garrison Matthews at 3K for the Wizards? Plop, put him in. Now he's like you said, an absolute weapon.
He is the best player on the Rockets.
His nickname. We have to let his nickname be known to the world. Do you know it, Clash?
I don't. What is it?
Oh, it's going to be your favorite nickname now. His nickname is Gary Bird.
Oh God. Yeah. We'll work on that.
I was calling him Mr. Garrison, but I'll go with the real nickname now.
Yeah, no, that's his legitimate nickname. Like people are literally calling him that on Twitter. There's articles about it. I think it might be already on Basketball Reference too. I gotta check, but if it's on Basketball Reference, then it's for sure real.
Then it's real. Yeah, that's fair. I'll give you that.
The idea that we would spend this much time talking about Garrison Matthews on a slate where he's not even playing, like unbelievable, truly.
Kevin Durant, are you playing or not? That's the bottom line here.
We'll find out.
It is live on Basketball Reference right now. Garrison Matthews, Gary Bird.
That's sad.
So I guess there's not much more to say about Nets Raptors until we know what Durant's doing, right?
There is. I want to make a point on this slate since we have the DFS lineups pulled up. I think it's a viable strategy to go with Nick Claxton and Kevon Looney as the 2 centers for this game. Yeah, you kind of block yourself out from having a late swap opportunity if Chris Paul sits or whatever, but having these 2 guys that can score over 20 fantasy points easily at basically min price just sets up too well for me to ignore in this slate.
So, okay, this is a perfect segue into the last game because the only reason I disagree is that we don't know if DeAndre Ayton's playing. And JaVale McGee has not been nearly popular enough his last 2 starts with Ayton not playing. And he's put up, I think the number is 90? I think 80 fantasy points in the 2 games. It was a 49 and a 31, if I remember it correctly. So McGee is like at 4,200. You can't afford to not be able to get McGee if he's the starter and Ayton's not playing, because if that happens, you lose. That's basically how I'm viewing this. They don't have another center, so
yeah. Because what's his other guy?
Jalen Smith. Yeah. The first game that McGee started for Ayton a couple games ago against Boston, Jalen Smith was there, and they basically split the center minutes. It was like 26 for McGee, 22 for Smith. And then
the Celtics
last night,
didn't try in that game. He had a double-double in the first quarter. Sorry.
McGee was shooting threes too, though. You see that on screen. He's attempted 2 3-pointers in each of his last 2 games. Like, he's doing everything. The 25 minutes that he got last game with Smith not there was because he lost 4 or 5 minutes at the end to a blowout. The Suns pulled their starters out of the game with a few minutes left. Like, McGee's probably playing 30 minutes tonight if Ayton doesn't play, and he's 4,200, and he's actually he's incredibly good points per minute fantasy wise. So I like Looney and I like Claxton, and I would probably just play one of them.
Okay.
I think those are both good calls. I just want to make sure that I can get McGee if we get that situation.
So let's play the quick game here. Let's say Durant is out. Who's the go-to stud? Factoring in ownership.
Yeah, you have to. Like Harden's going to be 70 or 80%, but I think also the other thing that happens if Durant doesn't play is the chance for a blowout in that game goes.
You think Harden's going to be 80, 70, 80% owned?
On the 3-game slate with KD out? Yeah.
If KD's in, he's only going to be like 20.
Chirag, I thought you were shaking your head. It looked like Chirag was going to disagree with you.
No, it makes too much sense.
Okay. All right.
He just has almost no chance to, like, well, I guess what it really comes down to, like projection wise for people that use optimizers, he's going to be like 10 or 15 fantasy points above every other player on the slate for roughly the same price. So it's just like you have to actively remove him to not get him if you're using an optimizer to make lineups. And since that's probably like how half the people playing make their lineups, he's just going to show up everywhere.
Yep.
And then even for people who are building by hand, it's just like Durant's out, I'm playing Harden. Like that's very, I mean, it's very black and white. You don't have to do too many steps like logically to come up with that answer. So even with the Steph situation going on, and then the other thing is like there's a bunch of cheap players on this slate. And especially so if Durant doesn't play, like the Nets have a bunch of guys who are going to be playing tonight who are like 3 to 4K. Portland's got a couple in that price range. It's going to be easy to fit 2 studs anyway. So like you can play Harden and Curry, or play Harden and Randall, or maybe even Harden, Randall, and Curry. Like you'll be able to get a bunch of guys in that higher price range together. So yeah, like Harden's going to be in everyone's lineup, and I still think you probably just eat the chalk and worry about differentiating elsewhere because like Harden's floor might be 50 fantasy points in that situation.
Okay.
They just have no one else to score.
Eat the chalk, or do you try to differentiate? You say,
yeah. Well, there's other chalk that maybe we don't want to get too crazy about, like Derrick Rose and Alec Burks, for example, like the Knicks cheaper guards, or Robert Covington and Larry Nance. Like those are going to be some popular names. I'm more inclined to try.
Robert Covington actually played better off the bench and got his normal allotment of minutes in that game.
The low-key thing that's happening for Portland just quickly is that Cody Zeller's out, so Covington's playing backup center minutes.
Yeah.
And look at the minutes, 30, 35, 34. I mean, those are big, those are good numbers at $3,400. So
yeah.
All right. Great.
Durant.
Nothing on Durant. I blame Meiselman, Chirag. He said this was going to break during the show. It didn't happen.
We still got a few minutes, right? How much time do we have left?
We got to get out at 5 of. That's what
Durant, if you're watching, just tell us, like, what are you waiting for?
I thought you had him on the text, bro. What happened?
No, I don't have Durant's number. I got most of the guys. I don't have Durant.
Oh
yeah, that's right. That's a good call, Chirag. That's right. Meiselman's got everyone's.
I mean, Harden could text me and tell me what Durant's doing. I'm sure he knows, but I haven't heard.
But I thought, never mind. I thought you were going to meet Harden at the club afterwards. That's why he was texting you.
All right. Steph Curry, definitely going to break the record tonight, right? There's no way he doesn't do it.
I mean, if he doesn't, it's going to be because something really weird happened. Like probably because he got injured. Like I don't think there's any other way.
And you're both on the Knicks.
Yeah.
Knicks are going to lose by 3.
I'm with it.
All right. And then look, the next 2 games, wait for the news, right? Like you got to wait for the news.
Yeah. We got to wait for
too much up in the air.
So I guess the quick thing is like you want to set yourself up to be able to play McGee if Ayton's out. And there's enough value plays in that game. I guess what it really is like you can't afford to not have McGee. He's not going to be sneaky tonight because there's only 3 games and many of the value plays are from that late game anyway. So like people are just going to move to McGee off of their other Portland and Phoenix guys. But we also maybe Chris Paul rests. So like just be aware that stuff could change between 7:30 and 10.
Man, 3-game slate with this much to worry about. That's just wild.
True. It's true. And
the first game, Curry,
and it should be a 4-game slate too with the postponement already in
right.
here.
Well, and you're right. The last thought for me is just that first game, it's out of our control, right? Like we know Curry's playing. We know they're all playing. We just don't know how the game script is going to go. Whereas the other things, we'll find out about Durant. We'll find out about Ayton. We'll find out about Chris Paul.
Yep.
So, all right. Should be fun. Looking forward to it.
Man,
that
was it. Man, I saw Steve Nash come across my screen and I thought it was news, but it's not.
Okay, keep an eye on that. Kevin Durant.
He might be talking at the presser right now.
Go follow Chirag on Twitter and
I'll retweet it for
the
people to know.
Perfect. All right, that's going to do it for us. Thanks for watching. Best of luck with your NBA lineups and bets. For Matt Meiselman, Chirag Hira, thanks to Eamon and Tom behind the scenes. Brendan Glasheen saying so long. Be sure to join us tomorrow at DraftKings, YouTube, Twitch, and also on the DK Nation Twitter for the sweat at 11 a.m. Talk to you then. Bye.